Welcome to Hear From Where, a podcast about the journeys that shape us. I'm your host, Chef Andrew Garrett, and each week I'll sit down with incredible individuals who've carved their own paths in health, nutrition, entrepreneurship, sports, and beyond. This is where we dive deep into the stories of determination, resilience, and passion, the moments that brought them here, from where they started. Whether you're looking for inspiration, a spark to start your own journey, or just love hearing amazing stories, then you're in the right place. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's explore what it really takes to follow your dreams. Hello, and welcome to Hear From Where. This is episode number 14. I'm your host, Chef Andrew Garrett, and today I am joined by a very good friend of mine, Mr. Andrew Hennings, the owner of Hennings Health and a soon-to-be master of public health. Andrew, thank you so much for joining me today. I am very excited to dive into your history of health and fitness, where you are today and how you've gotten there. I think the biggest thing that is what I really admire most about you is the path that you've taken to get to where you are today. And what I'm going to really try to do is dig into what that story looks like, because you and I have known each other for over a decade now. I think we're just about 12 years, maybe.
2014.
Yeah, 11 years.
Yeah.
11 years. So we've known each other for 11 years. So I've been fortunate enough to see a lot of your life as well as you seeing a lot of mine. And I really think of you as a little brother in so many ways. So I'm excited to share your story with the rest of the world. Let's get into it. Where are you from? Where are you from? Let's start there.
Thank you, Andrew. And for listeners, to make it not complicated, I always just called him Chef. And that was a nickname that I learned on the rugby field, which is where we met. So I just refer him as Chef. When he calls, Chef pops up on the phone. So thank you for having me on. It's been great. Where am I from? I'm from the big island of Hawaii, the island of Hawaii, specifically. Born in Kona, born and raised there. My mom, family is still there. I do have some family in Orange County, but I was born and raised there until 18, and then shipped off to Oregon for school.
Shipped off to Oregon to school. Now, where'd you go to school? What do you mean? What do you mean shipped off?
Yeah, I wanted to get off the island. A little bit of island fever. I wanted to explore. So I went to Pacific University in Forest Grove, Oregon, which is just outside of Portland, Oregon, but still in the Portland metro. And I wanted a new experience, and Pacific University does a really good job of recruiting in Hawaii. And so at the time of my attendance in 2010, there was 25% of the student population was from Hawaii. So I went to Oregon, and we were still serving white rice for breakfast, which all the mainlanders, you're a mainlander, Howleys were like, why is there rice for breakfast? And, I thought it was great. We had the biggest student run luau. It's probably still true. I'm not sure. I haven't stayed up on the alumni events, but the huge luau program, like Hawaiian events. And it was a small school, 2,200 kids. And when I started in 2010, they had just revitalized the football team. So there was even more kids from Hawaii there. And I started, my intent was to study exercise science, eventually become a physical therapist. And Pacific University has a great PT or doctorate of PT program. And so that was kind of where I started. I ended up doing a history minor as well. But kind of started my journey there in Oregon.
Okay. Now you say you had island fever. Like a lot of people are going to be like, island fever. Doesn't that mean you're craving the island versus like you have island fever? I got to get off this island. What was it like growing up in Hawaii?
Yeah. It's a small town. It's an island, so same things that go in other small towns here on the mainland. And I'm based in San Diego now. Everyone knows each other, and the drama gets inbred, and it's a beautiful place, and the food is amazing, and the culture is beautiful. And one thing that I kind of noticed when I came to Oregon, or went to Oregon for school, is that the value of the land that we were on was kind of really imprinted in all the Hawaii kids. It was, take care of the land. We call it Malamana Ika. So like, take care of the land, don't litter, things like that. That was just common sense for a lot of us. And there's, of course, in Oregon, there is that kind of caretaker. But like, being really connected to the land in Hawaii was something that I didn't realize that I had until I had that juxtaposition of going to a school and on the mainland. And but yeah, you get tired of, I wanted to try different things. Hawaii is beautiful, and a lot of people go to Hawaii to visit, and so tourism is our number one source of income and economy. So staying on the island means that you're probably going to be working in hospitality or something surrounding, especially if you don't have an advanced degree or a business sense, which at the time I didn't. And my stepdad was a waiter for a long time. My mom worked in advertising; she still does. So I wanted to get out and escape, hospitality and becoming a server or bartender, which ironically I ended up doing for almost a decade after school. But
be careful. You remember who you're talking to. There's nothing wrong with the hospitality industry.
no,
we're people too.
I loved being behind a bar. I retired my non-slips though.
That's fair. That's fair. And you did wind up a little bit in the hospitality industry. So when you came stateside, you were going to school. Were you working while you're also in school, or were you just focusing 100% in school?
I had a little work study job at the information center, which was fun because I love to chat. And but like, my first job out of school, I worked at a vineyard, and I worked at knocking on doors, like door-to-door solicitation. But I worked a little bit, but I also did athletic training, actually my freshman sophomore year.
That's
I
really
want to say
funny. I can really see you as like a door-to-door like solicitor.
Oh yeah.
Like one of the people that walks right by my no soliciting sign twice and still walks up to my door, knocks on my door, and wonders why I'm not answering or why I'm looking at him through the glass. Yeah, I could see you do that. You're very welcome. You're a very like outgoing person, so I like that about you. So, we're skipping over how we met, and so rugby. When did you start playing rugby? Did you play rugby on the islands, or did you come and get connected at Pacific and start playing rugby there?
No, I didn't play rugby on the islands. I don't think my mom would have let me. uh, so mom, if you're watching this, I started swimming my freshman year, because I swam in high school, open water, and then transitioned to a pool. And I'll be honest, I hated it, and ended up hurting my shoulder, which kind of accelerated my this isn't for me. And I saw a flyer on the inside of a stairwell that had a picture of, I want to say, the All Blacks tackling someone, and said, "You want to learn how to play rugby?" And I said, "Yes, I do." So I showed up, and we are the Pacific University men's rugby team, first inaugural. We didn't have uniforms. We borrowed shirts from the not the information center, but one of the student organizations. So we borrowed these Pacific University shirts and put on whatever cleats and rugby shorts we could find, and played our first match, I believe, against Oregon State, and lost handedly. But that was probably the most fun I had, and challenging. I've always loved being athletic, trying different things. In Hawaii, I did judo for 4 years, competed in states. I always wanted to try new things, and rugby seemed to fit that, being on the edge and being the start of something meant that I could fail without, fear of getting kicked off the team because you need
Who else
15
are you
guys.
going to get to do this?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you wound up playing with the Portland Pigs, which is where you and I ultimately met. Was through the Pigs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Do
all
you want
right,
it?
all right. Well, that it's been a great story so far. I guess we'll wrap. I'm just joking. We're not going to wrap that up.
I can
So,
elaborate on our first time we met.
which one was the
Or,
first time we met?
well, I think we played against the Pigs my senior year,
Yeah, you definitely played against us. I definitely wasn't playing in that match. I don't know. Maybe I was. I don't know. 2011.
but it would have been 2013 or 14.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah. I probably was. I think that was just about time to retire for the first time. Was that season? So, what did you finish at Pacific University? What degree did you wind up finishing up with there?
Thanks. I got a degree in exercise
Okay.
science, integrative physiology, with a minor in history.
History. What kind of history were you studying? Is
Mostly American West history. I took a French Revolution class that was really cool, and my favorite class, besides exercise physiology, mostly because the professor, Dr. Henry, but my favorite class was a history of witchcraft, and it was more focused on kind of a history of Christianity and the things that happened to people they called witches. But it went through a lot. wasn't great. Wasn't great. But it went through a lot of different, religions, spiritualities, and interwoven, traditions that we have today, like lighting birthday candles or Christmas trees, like, things that you wouldn't normally think of that are embedded within our society that come from old and like pagan. They say pagan, but those old traditions that are focused in deities and mythology and things like that. So it was a really, really cool class, and kind of opened my eyes to the beginning of spirituality, which later played a role in my life.
That's awesome. I love that. I always think that taking those kind of fringe classes or having something that is of interest to you while you're going to school for something that is your main passion is important because it like the little bit of school that I went to, um, I had a geology class, and that was my favorite class that I took was this Pacific Northwest geology class that I learned all about the Pacific Northwest and all, how the Columbia Gorge was formed and all the mountains around us. So I have this really like deep well of unnecessary information that I wouldn't use anywhere else. But like when my friends come to visit and I'm talking like, oh yeah, I know about how this 20,000 years ago, the glacial floods. Um, but it is like it's important to have that piece that you could actually enjoy while you're going to school. Did you enjoy going to school? Like what was it that kind of well actually let's get back to this. What was it that drew you to physical fitness and like physiology? Like what was it that drew you to that?
Mm. That was a good question. I would like to say you are using that class. I mean, look behind you. You're a hunter. You're an outdoorsman. It's maybe the extra deep details. It's cool. I don't often. Anyway, I'll diverge. And you asked. You asked. There's two brain cells in my head waving bye to each other right now, and you asked what inspired me or brought me into the world of fitness. My stepdad ran triathlons, and he was always really fit. And I was a skinny white boy in Hawaii, and I got bullied a lot. And I always wanted to be stronger. I think that's a very common for all boys, and a little body dysmorphia and things like that. But I always wanted to be fitter. And when my body type at that time definitely wasn't able to bulk up, I wanted to be able to defend myself. And so I joined judo, and I did pretty good at that. I have long legs, and I can flip someone over them, and I did all right. I enjoyed that. I also enjoy the camaraderie that comes with team sports and sweating together and getting hurt together and, traveling on a bus together. At that time, also in high school, our judo wrestling room was right next to athletic trainers. And so I would get easy access to go to the trainers. And I liked that the trainers could help someone with their pain. I like that if I came to them, they would know what to do if my ankle hurt or whatever. And so I started asking them questions, and they said, "Why don't you join us?" And they had a student athletic training program. And so they got me because the women's volleyball team needed a traveling trainer, and I signed up. And I was good. I made sure the tape had no wrinkles in it, and I cleaned up and was respectful, and I really enjoyed it. I love learning about the body. I bought like an anatomy book, and like I was trying to figure out, I wanted to be at that. I wanted to get paid for what I was doing. And then I got put with the men's football team, which was a little bit different than the women's volleyball team, but I got really good at taping ankles. And I got really good at, dealing with multiple athletes at the same time, needing different things and multitasking. And now that I'm saying this out loud, I kind of wish that I would have put this into my physical therapy application, because I think I would have gotten in with that. But so I got that taste, and then my athletic trainer, one of them, who was sort of a mentor, like suggested going to physical therapy. Connecting those two likes and wants and desires and things that I was good at, and so that drew me to exercise science within at Pacific University, and then at constantly being able to move. But I will say, and I touched a little bit on like that body dysmorphia side. Like I was always afraid of going into a gym, because I wasn't going to lift right. I got bullied a little bit. Well, not a little bit, but I got bullied as a kid, and being a skinnier kid, like I never wanted to go into the gym and lift, because one, I knew I was going to start at the bottom of the stack, or top of the stack, I guess, and bottom of the dumbbells, and I wasn't really sure if I was lifting right. And so I kind of avoided being in the gym, but I did other things that would keep my fitness up, either running or learning how to tackle the best way possible without the lift. And that kind of plagued me for a long time. And I'm 33 now. Recently, well, maybe the last 5 years has fallen away, that little fear of, I guess, being judged by other people in the gym.
Yeah, I mean, we go to the gym, no one cares. No one's looking at us. It's taken me a long time to know that, because I struggle with the same kind of fear and anxiety around what people might think. And it, like, now it works for me, because it's like my ego's there, and because I've done enough time lifting, I'm kind of like, I'm strong enough to not be like too like low on the pole, but I'm not strong enough to be like the dude that I look up to at the gym that doesn't know that I look up to at the gym. Like, and then there's a guy that I'm like in the competition with, but he doesn't know that I'm in a competition with them. But he might be in a competition with me, so I don't know if he is or not, because you don't talk about it. But like you see them lifting, like, oh, I could put on a couple more times. Anyways, long story short, yeah, it's hard to go to the gym. Going to the gym is a tough thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you have these other things around you, or when you've had people around you give you a hard time or bully you or pick on you about something physical. You're going in, like, it's a very vulnerable place. And so I think finding gyms that are welcoming of everybody is a super important thing. It's kind of one of the reasons why I like the gym that we go to now. Shout out to West Coast Strength. Good job, guys. Because Christine and I, we have a full gym in our garage, and I cannot work out by myself. I have discipline. I can wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go to the gym and work out with my buddy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I can't wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and walk into my 20 feet into my garage. Why is that? Why do you think that is? What do you think? Come on, like, let's break that down. Like, what do you think keeps someone from using their home gym?
Well, that's behaviors and changing behaviors is probably one of the hardest things, and it's not because this is only my own experience. Now I'm a personal trainer, and I work with patients with I call less than ideal movement practices, and that behavior is probably the hardest thing to do because the heaviest weight in the gym is the front door, and how that voice is really loud in the morning at 4 in the morning or 5 in the morning or 6 in the morning. That voice gets really loud of snooze, of I'll do it later, of well, I already ate like crap last night, so I'm not worth it, and it's a kind of an individual thing of what is beyond the voice, like what is driving that, is it being uncomfortable? Because we almost always feel better going to the gym, like doing it, almost always. So what?
I would argue that it's always like every time I go to the gym, I always walk out of the gym feeling better than when I walked in, like 100%.
I'd like to go back into when was the first time I heard that voice? When was the first time that I heard that I don't want to do it? Sometimes I'll get it mid-session, especially on like a run or something, or if I'm doing laps, it'll start getting louder and be like, well, you've kind of already done this, and like the excuses start, and then maybe I have a little bit of an ache, and then it'll start really hyper focusing on that ache, and it'll get louder and louder, and then I'll get off my game and stop running or stop lifting or whatever it is. So I like to go back, and this is if I'm working with someone, is like, when's the first time you heard that voice? Whose voice is that? Is it yours? Was it your dad's? Was it, someone else? And then play around with that and look because it's more than just not getting up at 4 in the morning. Or, I'm going to be honest, it's a shitty time to wake up to go lift. So maybe choose a different time, I don't know. That's just where I'm at.
Love it. That's a really good point. Is that I think that a lot of times we don't realize like how much mental strength it takes to have physical strength, and the combination of the two really kind of is what translates through for people. Now, you work with athletes of all different levels, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you work with folks that have not set foot in the gym, and you work with folks that have been at the professional level, right?
Yes. So I'll explain for listeners. I have a small practice. My primary modality is stretching. So if you've heard of Stretch Lab or Stretch Zone or Stretch U or any of those, I do 50-minute sessions, mostly stretching, some cupping, some scraping, myofascial release, things like that. So people come to me generally with aches, pains. They were at an F45 class, and they tried to do a deadlift too quickly because they were right next to a partner that they were in a competition with, and they tweak their low back. Well, sometimes it's an easy fix of, okay, when you stretch your hip flexors and take it easy, but it's also, what do you do during 40 hours of the week? You are sitting all day, hip flexors are contracted, your back is in a flexion all day, and then you go and do a high impact class and your back hurts. Or people will complain and say, I sneezed and I threw my back out or something like that. And it's not the sneeze, like that was just the straw that broke the camel's back. You were on your way to this injury because your body was so stiff. It was a piece of dried spaghetti, ready to crack. So I work with a number of different clients. Right now, my population are pretty high performing weekend warrior people. Like they're training at a pretty high intensity, training for things like high rocks, Spartan races, things like that. And they're either trying to improve their performance, just get recovery in between their training sessions, feel better. And I do have clients that are trying to work back into a workout or whatever. And I don't think my age range has gone from basically 13 to 88. But right now I'm in Most people are 30s to 40s. That's probably just the way I market, and that's mostly on Instagram. And then personal training, I love guys who haven't really worked out before, who are suffering from what we were talking about before, that fear of getting into the gym, of really not knowing what to do. Because I was there. I had a degree and I tried science, and my deadlift form was crap. It's because I just hadn't done it. I was afraid of it, you know? So I like working with that and helping. Like this morning, I had the opportunity to work with a mother of two. Her, I think 4 and 2 years old. I'm not really good at ages sometimes. But she was getting low back pain because she's picking him up out of the crib, and she's doing it with a bended back. And so we did some good mornings and we did some deadlifts. And then I tricked her. I put like a little mini Bosu ball on the ground, and we had just done all these exercises, and we talked about straight back and like hinging and all these things to protect our back, and we should be getting all the force from our glutes and our hamstrings. And so I put that Bosu ball, and I was like, hey, can you grab that? We're just going to set it up for the next exercise. This is at her home, and her son is running around, and she bends with a bent back and picks it up, and I go, gotcha. And I go, oh. So I set up another drill of picking up things from the ground on a bench from far away. How to do these things safely with your back, because it's not the F45 class where we pick up that weight wrong. It's the hundreds of things we do during the day of bending and picking, and I'm just going to grab this, even if it's your towel, if you're in the shower and your towel drops on the floor and you're bending over to pick it up, all these things need to be taken into account. So, and if you're listening and being like, oh, this is kind of overwhelming, it's really small attitude changes. Like, oh, no matter what, I'm not going to make an excuse like when I'm picking something up. If that's your problem, low back pain or whatever it is, like, oh, I need to wake up at 4 a.m. That voice comes. I need to recognize that's not my voice, that's someone else's or whatever. I don't know where I am.
All right. I like it. And so I'm working on warming up better and stretching and be more intentional with movement. At 44 years old, and 25 plus years of playing rugby at varying levels, I've beaten my body up pretty good. And so I've learned, I've watched, I've seen other people have success and find some like good feelings through stretching. What do you think it is that really, well, actually, it's not a thing. What is it about stretching that really helps us be better overall? Just like, why do we need to stretch? I guess that's the question, is like, why stretch? What does it do for us?
That's a really good question. You can take it from a number of different ways, but most simply, stretching allows your joints to move at a greater range of motion. Now within, let's say, your arm, you have your elbow joint, you have your forearm, you have a bunch of muscles, you have a couple bones there, you have your biceps and your triceps. If I am, excuse me, I'm gonna burp.
Oh, jeez.
Just kidding.
All right. Well, now you got that out. Hey, I told you I don't edit any of this, so that's on. Good. That's on. The world is good to see this.
This is good to know.
All 25 people that watch this.
Hello. There might be 26 now.
All right.
Okay, so
we're talking about elbows.
The muscle, the muscle organ, let's go with the biceps, is surrounded by fascia. Now, if you've ever eaten a steak and ripped the steak and there's that fibrous connective tissue, that's fascia. Now, each organ itself, so let's say the whole biceps muscle, that's surrounded by fascia. So this kind of sticky holds everything together. And then within each organ, the muscle, it's also broken up into different segments. And those are surrounded by connective tissue, by fascia. And then within each of that system, there's tubes, microtubes, and then the individual muscle cell. So pretty much every one of those, except for the individual muscle cell, is surrounded by this connective tissue, fascia. And when we're stretching, generally, we're stretching the fascia first. So the fascia does really well when it's warmed up, when we have our fats and things and all that warmed up. So that's why you feel like you can move better a little after the day or in a hot shower. So if I'm, let's say, doing a forward fold and stretching my hamstring, you'll feel that initial tension, maybe right in the belly, right in the middle of your hamstring. And as you keep going, we'll get into the muscle. Now, muscle cells do stretch, but they don't often stretch they can stretch an incredible amount, but it's usually the fascia that holds back. So a lot of times what we're doing is stretching against the fascia. Stretching has been shown to grow muscle in the lengthwise, so you can actually length. So yogis who are very serious now that their bodies are usually really successful people at yoga have a certain body type that are slimmer, but that's not always the case. But they can actually grow muscle in that stretch because you're creating a tension in there. It's not a lot. It's not the same as a hypertrophy from like a bicep curl or whatever. But one thing that'll happen is when we're stretching is it's called the Golgi tendon response. And you'll notice this about, have you heard of this at all? I should stop. I'm just rambling.
No, these are new words to me.
Okay. We'll just call it the GTR. So you can look it up. It's a natural, everybody has it. Golgi tendon is now these two brain cells way about each other are struggling on this one. It's a part of the muscle organ, and it basically tells your body when you're in either fight or flight, or in like a stretch. So when you first go into that forward fold, your body will hold, and that's your GTR. It's like saying, hey, we're holding, like something's going on. And then about 3 to 4 breaths, which could be 30 seconds, 20 seconds, kind of different for everybody, they'll relax just a little bit. And that's the GTR. So traditionally, a lot of research says hold a stretch for more than 30 seconds. And that's why. Because after that stretch, the muscle releases a little bit. The electronic impulses tell it to let go, and you can go a little bit deeper. There's other research that says stretching doesn't matter unless you hold it for a minute. But I generally, for myself, most muscles, except for hamstrings, do about 30 seconds to 3 to 4 breaths. It's the same thing I do with my clients.
Sweet. That's awesome. I did not know this. And now I have something to focus myself a little bit further on when I'm stretching. I like that.
So for listeners, try this. Sit down on your butt, and we're going to be stretching your hamstrings. I call it the 2-minute drill. You sit down, you bend one leg in, foot touching your knee, and you're just going to forward fold, and you're going to reach towards, depending on how flexible you have, reach towards your shin or your toes. So you feel that stretch in the back of your leg. The hamstrings are in the back of your leg, that cause your knee to flex. We're going to set a timer for 2 minutes. So put your phone down right by your extended leg, and every 30 seconds, you're going to reach a little deeper. Now, your muscle didn't magically get longer, but your muscle relaxes and the fascia relaxes while you're doing this. So by the end of the 2 minutes, have a goal. If you can't touch your toes right now, have a goal by the end of 2 minutes to at least put like a finger on your toe. If you can touch your toes, at the end of the 2 minutes, have a goal to put nose to knee, whatever it is, somewhere in the spectrum. Do that for the other leg for 2 minutes. So that's 4 minutes out of your day, and it's a world of difference. It's a really great exercise.
All right. I will. I might. I'm not going to. I might do that later today. Yeah, I'll take it into consideration. I'll think about it. I'll think about getting there. So with the personal training and the stretching, what else are you doing? Because I know that you are just about to finish your Master of Public Health candidacy, or is it? So it's a program, right? So it's a master's. It's a master's degree in
Mm-hmm.
public health. You're not just the master of public health. Like, I mean, you're not. I mean, or are you? Are you going to be like? Are people going to be
Right.
like, oh, Master Andrew?
No,
No. Okay.
no, I don't think so. So I'm getting my master's in public health. I'm actually not sure if it's master's of public health or master of public health. I think I've written it both ways.
I'm going
Nobody's
with
corrected
master.
me.
I like master better.
It's not a master of English. I'll tell you that. I can tell you that. So, and the emphasis is management and policy. And within public health, you can go from environmental health to, you know, program development, think like health clinics and stuff, to epidemiology, which is all the statistics, like really focusing on the statistics of public health. And then mine is management policy, which is kind of similar to a master's of healthcare administration, which is where I'll be headed in June with a job at Kaiser.
Awesome. So, I mean, I'll be honest. I don't really understand. Like, to me, public health is going to consist of things that are important for the public. So, like, kind of greater, larger, like macro, not micro issues. So, like you had mentioned environmental. That's one course of study. Programs is another course of study. So, when we talk about public health, what is the general uh, coverage area of public health? Like, what does that entail?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And before I really get into it, I I was at a friend's going away like beach bonfire 2 weeks ago, and this girl was asking me what public health was, and I don't know, I was just staring at a bunch of data, and I said, well, it's a lot of like the statistics of population health and looking at research papers and trying to figure out what data means what and how. And every time I said data, her eyes got a little bit more glassy and like stonewalled. And I was thinking about coming up to here. I was like, well, how do I explain what public health is without saying, well, it's looking at the data of the health of a population, which is exactly what it is. But in reality, just like the guy who sneezed and threw out his back, public health is the building of systems and investigation of the systems to prevent people from going to the hospital, more or less. It's what can we do to benefit the greater good when it comes to the health of the populace, and that can go from environmental health, and that's looking at the EPA and clean waterways. That's epidemiology, which is the study of the population statistics. So if there's an outbreak of cholera, where is it coming from? Following the numbers, other epidemics, pandemics, you might say. Program development, public health is more into that like systems and like how do I change the behavior of the populace, which is incredibly difficult because there's we're talking about you and I who are love health and love wellness, and we love being active and competing with each other, and we struggle with getting out to the front door. Now imagine that if you have childcare issues, educate, like whatever, so that's a real challenge, and there's a lot of people who really care about other people's health in there, but it's kind of a running up into a brick wall on that side. And then there's me. I'm in management policy, which is not only the systems of like the program development side, but looking at healthcare organizations and how they're organized, and the insurance, what's so complex, and especially the American healthcare system is very complex. And it takes a master's to try and figure out. And there's still stuff that I'm unsure about, and it's frustrating. But it's important for all of us to realize, our individual health does affect, the greater whole, and especially when it comes to money, to financial outcomes and things, and our own lives. How much is your own health worth to you? So there's the economics of health and things like that.
That's crazy. So it really is a broad spectrum that's broken into multiple smaller chunks and pieces. So, because I think public health, like the public health, just gets thrown around in today's world where it's like, the public health, the public health, public health, but nobody really like focuses in on, the different little micro pieces. It's like economics, right? Like I love economics, and I could talk microeconomics with most people, and just bore the heck out of them because I love data and I love statistics. Because I feel like when you look at data, that's where you could really that's the nuts and bolts of it, right? Is I could look at my, so for example, right now I'm back, I'm on what I'm calling a cut. I'm on a cut. I'm on a calorie deficit.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've been in a calorie surplus because I was building strength. So
Yeah,
now I'm on my
absolutely.
cut. But I think that that's a good example. Is like I could look at that and I can say, okay, I consumed 1,900 calories today, of which 190 of that was protein and 125 was carbohydrates and 65 was fats. And if I do that for a week, so I take those numbers by 7, and then I look at my overall body mass at the end of that 7 days, and I have this decrease, and I'm like, all right, like that's a okay, so that's proof right there. Like numbers don't lie, right? Like the old adage, like the numbers don't lie. But sometimes numbers do. But that data, I love that about public health, and I think that that's something that's what I love about systems within public health is the data that we can look at to identify how to mitigate future problems. But as you said, it's like for someone like myself or someone like you, where we've been around sports, athletics, fitness, health, we've had this like thrown down our faces for most of our lives, and for us it's easy to buy in. But for somebody that hasn't been around it, or someone that's been ostracized by it, been bullied by it, it's hard to walk through that door and say, okay, well, you know what, I am obese. Oh, you know what, I shouldn't eat all this junk food on a regular basis. Like I need to have more activity in my life. If I walk, it's going to make me feel better. What do you think it is that can help us to gain more attraction with that population? Like what do you think is the change that we need as a society to help our friends get healthier? Because I think we all have people in our lives that are struggling with health. They don't know where to start, they don't know what to do. But there is I kind of look at it like sobriety for myself is like there is hope, right? Like I get a lot of people ask me a lot of questions about sobriety, and I can answer those questions all day long because I've been around it for a long time. But when it comes to like health, like I don't know, I don't, even though I know what to do and what to say, I don't know what it looks like for other people. Like what is it? What is it? Like what can we do? How can we get more people to buy in? What do you think?
Thank you, I guess, for that question. That's probably the toughest question. When it comes to, I think, and you started your section right here about public health being thrown around. There's definitely a fear or mistrust of public health figures from the pandemic. Um, Under the auspice of government public health, Tuskegee Black men were infected with syphilis against their consent. Well, they weren't even, there was no consent to be dealt with. And they're still dealing with health problems from that. And so when we look at today, what are we doing right now? The resources are there for the most part. the tools are around. Social media has given us a plethora of free exercise programs, lots of influencers saying one, you can find equal points of view on each side of, ruck or run or don't run or whatever it is. It's like, so we have the information. Now some populations don't have access to the population because of technology, poverty, things like that. But if you look at your general person who has a phone, who has social media, who has access to at least a grocery store that has healthy food, how do we motivate them to seek health and not give up, is extraordinarily challenging, because I think one, it really comes down to the community that we surround ourselves with. And that's why a lot of, I guess, I want to say government programs or public health things don't work that well, is because it's like who's showing up to town hall events for your local government. It's usually the same population, unless it's a really hot topic or something. It's the same people showing up to these things, and so there's a lot of really good natured programs that get developed to help people get up and walk, go get your blood pressure checked, things like that. But it's just not reaching a good portion of people because the communities that they're involved in aren't focused on health. Now, I will say that, and I just rambled a significant amount on that one, but I will say that there has been a shift in people seeking information about the food they're getting, as a result of, Make America Healthy Again. There is a shift in people's perceptions over control of their own health and, healthcare to some degree. So we are seeing that. But then on the individual side, it's what are you doing, and then can you bring a friend along? It's as simple as that. It's motivating yourself, because you can have a lot of people like me who have masters in public health who are motivated to this, but you're not going to listen to me. You're probably going to listen to your friend. Yeah.
Well, it's hard to buy into anything when there's so much information out there that you made a great point. Is like the internet and social media and influencers drives me mad, just drives me absolutely insane, because like you said, you could find the same amount of information on this thing that you're questioning, and then you could find the same arguing between it. So it's like, where do people go to find information that is more middle of the road, or going to be more on the really helpful side? Where are some places that people can look for that information? What do you think?
If you can read a meta-analysis, you can read a meta-analysis. Honestly, you know what? If you have the wherewithal, honestly, the best way to look at what is best for you is to look at, go on Google Scholar or something, and look up, I would search meta-analysis or systematic review of, let's say, nutrition, or let's say you want to look at seed oils, are seed oils bad for you? How much cardio is enough? Things like that. And I will say, I did this a couple years ago when I really started my master's in public health. I was like, are seed oils bad for you? And the first article I opened up said absolutely, and then the second article I opened up said nope, no definitive evidence. And the third article I said, well, maybe, but and then one, nutrition, and I know you had a guess here on nutrition, but nutrition studies are notoriously difficult to run, because people have you have different types of people, and then you have different people that stay true to the study, actually eat what they say they're going to eat and stuff. And so I kept looking at seed oils, and there are definitely negative outcomes with eating a lot of canola oil and things like that, eating a lot of processed oils. But then it goes to, is olive oil is bad for you and not? And I would say make the best choice for yourself, especially when it comes to nutrition. And then when it comes to, exercise, what can you do that doesn't hurt too much? I think we have to be a little bit uncomfortable. And if you're really afraid of being in discomfort, your life is not going to be for long. I don't know what to say. You have to be a little uncomfortable going through exercise and things like that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you really do, and I really like what you said about nutrition, because to me, like for me, that's a big one, right? Especially as a chef, as someone that works towards creating healthy food for clients, for people, is nutrition's huge. I had someone ask me yesterday, "Hey, is peanut butter bad for you? Is it bad for you?" And it's an honest question, because he didn't know. And my response is, no, peanut butter is not bad for you. Is 4 tablespoons of peanut butter 5 times a day bad for you? Yeah, that's not going to be the best. But I mean, and here's the other problem with being educated enough, or having enough experience around macros, is I could make 4 tablespoons of peanut butter fit in my macros if I really wanted to. If that's all I wanted to eat, I can make it work. Is it ultimately overall healthy? No, probably not. Probably not the best choice. But it's the same thing. It's I could just do bench press, every day, go to the gym and just do bench press. And would that be exercise? Yes, it would be exercise. Would it be overall helpful? Not overall. So finding ways, and I really love that you mentioned Google Scholar, because again, this is you're the 4th person that I've had on the show that mentioned Google Scholar, because I don't think people know about Google Scholar and how awesome it is to find research papers. It's Google Scholar.
So I will say, to add into that, to Google Scholar is great. If you are unfamiliar with doing research on your own, there's a couple notes to have. And this is honestly, you can, whatever public health or master it is, all my master's has done really has taught me how to research, how to be analytical about that, and make informed decisions based on what to do with that research in the health sphere. Now, if you're looking at, so I'll pull up a Google Scholar here. Well, I guess it'd be hard to do on the podcast while I'm chatting. So if I pull up on, this is not a webinar. If I pull up Google Scholar and I type in, let's say, seed oil health outcomes or whatever, you'll get a number of articles that'll populate. Try and find obviously ones that you have access to. Hopefully either your company allows you access if you're in a nonprofit, and if you're not, just find something that's freely available. Actually, one of the big public health policies of recent was, if you receive federal funding, your paper has to be available to the public, which is amazing, glorious.
So that's really cool. I didn't know that happened.
You'll find a lot of things on NIH that are free of access. So then you'll have an individual research article that'll be the question the scientist will ask will say, if I give 100 chefs 5 tablespoons of peanut butter, what happens? And then look at the outcome, and they report on the outcome. Now, if you were to just look at that, you might think that peanut butter is good. Now, chef is an active fella. He rucks. He does all this stuff. You have to take in that population. So, okay, I want to look at a different population. So you can look at a different research paper. And there's 100 research papers on whatever topic you're looking at. So that's why I look at what's called a meta-analysis. And a meta-analysis is taking those 100 papers and then looking at the differences between those populations, and then read the abstract, things like that. So you kind of have an idea. Now, when we're talking about health, you also want to ask yourself, what do you like to do? Like, do you like to do this? Is this something that works for you? And then to follow up, there's also, if we're looking more behavioral stuff, systematic reviews are great. Systematic reviews kind of look at the total body of literature and what researchers are saying, what questions haven't been asked yet. There's a lot of great stuff. And then to finally, I just finished my manuscript on for my management project, and I looked at suicide risk assessment and using AI to better the assessment at a hospital here in Hawaii, here in San Diego. And it was a great project. We did our own research based on last 2 years of patient encounters, and we used AI. But what I really did was really look at what other healthcare systems were doing with AI. And one of the tools that I found as a result of this research was actually this. It's called R Discovery. I believe it's like either rdiscovery.com, or if you just type in the letter R Discovery. And if you ask the question on, it's like R Discovery or whatever, RCD oils, or give me questions, it'll populate with found research articles. You can set a timeline, and it'll answer to the best of its knowledge, and then you can explore into those papers more. I also will use ChatGPT for questions like this, but I will very specifically either use our discovery, or I'll very specifically say, bring research articles from this date to this date, because our ChatGPT wants to give an answer that you'll like, and not necessarily an answer that is the most accurate, but you can direct it the right way.
I love my ChatGPT because my ChatGPT tells me what I want to hear, and that's the I use ChatGPT quite a bit in my work today, just for like menu planning and menu development, recipe development is all ask a question, and it's gotten to a point where it's helpful. It's really cool to hear places to like find this research, because I think that's something that's really hard to do, is like finding the information that is being argued about. And that's the other thing too, is like when we see people online or in the media or on social media talking about this research paper that they read, that's their interpretation of it. It's not necessarily what the paper says, it's how they interpreted it. And so that's where a lot of the miscommunication, like the misspeaking and the missteps kind of happen. I think just from what I've looked at, I try to stay off of most of the crazy.
I love
but
the
I like
crazy.
that. I'm going to check out rdiscover.com, and I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that because I think that's a great way to find information, especially because I'm a type of person that always likes to be right. So having something to back that up is super important. I can't believe, so we've already reached an hour, and I'm not going to steal a whole lot more of your time. So we'll come back to this at a later date as well. Like once you're officially a master of public health, and we'll revisit this because I'm going to have more questions about public health. I think that this is something we could talk for hours on, and we got in a good spot. So closing this out, what's the bare minimum, like what's the recommendation that you have for someone that might hear this and is nervous about getting out there and going to the gym or being active, or finding more nutritious ways to eat? What's the one little thing that someone can do to take that first step? What in your opinion is that first step thing?
First thing that I would do, if the smallest thing that you can do, is the 2-minute drill, and try that for a week. Try that 7 days in a row. Try the 2-minute drill and just see how your body feels. Listen to separate yourself from you who's either listening to this to that voice when you're doing that 2-minute drill and saying this hurts, like separate yourself from that voice and be good, get better and better over that week of saying, oh, I can do this. I will say that while you're doing this 2-minute drill, I like to think of pain as a bubble, especially when it comes to stretching. It's just going to be a little uncomfortable. I like to push right into that bubble and touch it, but I don't want to pop it. Same thing if you have injuries or whatever it is, brush right up against, maybe it's kind of to, when we don't want to be causing pain, but also, identify stretching pain and all. But try that 2-minute drill. That consistency will help a lot.
All right. I love it. Do the 2-minute drill. We've already talked about it. I'll mark that. Where can people find you to, are you available for people to reach out and ask questions? Like, where can people go to find information about you and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on Instagram at Hennings Health, HENNINGS HEALTH. You can also find me at henningshealth.com. There's a little contact button, and I do online consults, and I can write programs and things like that, whatever you need to do.
Right on, dude. There's so much more to our story and your story and what we can get into. I'm really glad that we covered what we did today. Thank you so much for spending the time with me. And I look forward to our next conversation where we get a little bit deeper into even more stuff.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you so much.
You betcha, brother. Thank you.
Take care.
That's it for this episode of Here From Where. Thanks for tuning in, and if you enjoyed the conversation, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. A huge thanks to Justin Pitaleski for the music and sound production, and until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep moving forward. All the best, and happy cooking.